and welcome to Valemount Votes, VCTV's series of one-on-one interviews with candidates for the municipal election. We're also speaking with candidates for the school district and with the regional district as well. And with me today is Andrew Burton. I'm going to have a read of his bio, and then we'll talk to Andrew and ask him some questions about issues on your mind with regards to the school board. Andrew Burton is a youth worker, counselor, and educator. He is the founder of Street Spirits Theatre Company, a program that involves youth in using performance to address problems in the world. He has a master's degree in education and has received national and international awards for his work, including the Canada Peace Medal and the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal. His years of work with youth give him insight into the needs and issues facing young people today, and that's what we're here to talk about. Welcome, Andrew.
Welcome, thank you.
So I guess you're running for the school district. This is your first crack at it, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you stand for? Why are you running?
I work with young people. And a lot of the young people I work with are facing, significant problems in their lives. What I find is that a lot of those problems are related to their experiences at school, or a lot of those problems could be addressed if we had a more developed school system. If we had a school system that had a vision of providing developmental opportunities for youth, which we don't have at the moment. We need something better. We need to look at young people not just in terms of what kind of grades they can get, but what do we want those young people to have in the future? What do we want their lives to be like in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? The world's changing. There are things that are commonplace and common use today that were unheard of 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. The changes in technology, cell phones, tablets, internet communication, those things are changing the world. Even something as simple as Google, for example. Right. 10 years ago, if you had to write a paper, if you had to learn something, that meant sitting in a library and looking up a lot of stuff through a pile of books. That's no longer the case. You can access that information in 10 seconds. That kind of change is where we're at now. Where is it going to be in 10 years? We don't know. So we need to create a school experience where young people not only learn, but learn how to learn, so that learning can be an ongoing process throughout the life cycle, so that when change happens, they can adapt to it quickly and easily.
All right. Sounds interesting. What are some ideas you would have for how to do that?
Well, one of the things that we need to do is we need to ensure that all of our schools have the adequate amount and level of technology to make that learning possible for our young people. Young people need to have that capability, and especially in small communities, because it's going to be that much more important to have that level of technology and that level of awareness. And that offers opportunity for expanded range in curriculum as well, because you may not have enough of a student base in a small community to provide some course material. Mm-hmm. But if we can expand the tech of the system, we can provide that. And we can provide that by having courses that are taught by distance ed through video conferencing or Skype connections, things like that. Right.
Well, obviously in rural communities like Valemount, student number decline is a real problem.
It's huge,
and
yes.
Of course funding goes hand in hand with that. It is a difficult problem. How do you see rural schools like Valemount, secondary here, how do you see us coping in the future with those kind of challenges?
Well, I'm glad you asked that particular question, because one of the things, that idea of student decline, one of the problems we have is that the province tends to look at funding for schools based on numbers. Right. And we have to recognize that that's not adequate. To say we're going to give X thousands of dollars per year per student just doesn't work. I mean, it works great for the Lower Mainland schools, but it is absolutely inappropriate for rural schools. So we need a different formula and a different way of thinking. When we talk about schools in small communities, we need to go beyond just the curriculum. We need to consider things like, how do we build community within the school? How do we build a sense of belonging and a sense of connectedness within the community, so that as our youth grow and develop, At some point, there's a great likelihood that the young people in our community are going to leave because they're going to go to major centers for post-secondary education. They're going to go to universities and colleges. How do we support them to be able to do that, but then create an experience within the community that's strong enough and positive enough that once they've done that, they come back and that they build the community? That's another role for schools, and it's a role that is far more important in a rural school or a small community school than it is in a major urban center.
All right.
Yeah.
What is an idea you would have for how to address that?
Well, one of the ways that really works with that is using a process they call the zone of proximal development. And that is that when you're working with young people, if you take young people and educate them as individuals, what happens is that you don't build those connections. But research and practice has shown that it's really useful to use this, what's called a ZPD approach, zone of proximal development approach. And what that does is you get a group of children working together, and that builds relationship within the group. It builds the social skills, and what you find is that the more advanced students help the ones that aren't developing as quickly, and everybody's skill level and everybody's learning is raised by that connection. So you end up with kids that develop better skills, better knowledge base, and social connectedness, and that addresses things like social relationships, and bullying and things like that are far reduced by using this model.
What are some of the ways that you feel that, I think it's very important in rural communities of our size, that the schools and the community work very closely together in terms of use of facilities, in terms of working with each other for experience programs, et cetera. How do you see that happening in a town like Valemount or McBride?
Well, you know, I think it's really important. I look at some of the schools that we have, like, for example, PGSS in Prince George has Vanier Hall, which is a wonderful theater facility, and that is just about always in use. And the result of that is that the school actually derives some revenue from that, plus it builds relationships within the community. And I know that your high school here, for example, has a beautiful theater, you know, so there's a space for developing more. You also have the opportunity, if we provide the support and the infrastructure to do it, you can use school facilities for other programs. So evening classes, open university classes, skill building things, you know, so that the older people in the community begin to see the school as a resource, begin to see the school as a place where things happen. And this can be learning processes, but also social events as well.
Right, the idea of a community learning center, for example.
Exactly,
rather than just a
community
school.
learning. And I've been working with some people in New York for several years, and they have a program there called UX that is run in New York City, and it's run right downtown in Manhattan. And it's a free university. They identify people in the community who have specific outstanding skills and knowledge and invite them to teach. And you get fantastic stuff there. You can go there and you can take political science, but you can also take pottery. You can take cooking classes and dance classes. Right. And all of those are provided in the community. And what it does is it identifies people in the community who have really outstanding skills that may not get noticed, and invite them to come in and share their knowledge with others. And that builds community. It builds community cohesion.
Interesting concept.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about the state of teacher school board morale. And we've gone through a very bitter, a long, prolonged strike, which ended, I think, not to the teachers' liking in the best way possible, but in terms of relationships and fence mending and trust rebuilding. How would you see the school board going about that process?
You know, during the job action, I wasn't on the board during the job action, but I spoke to people who were, and I also spoke to a lot of teachers. It was very interesting because in the media you were hearing all this stuff about the teachers wanting money and wanting job perks and so on and so forth, which my experience was that that's absolutely not true. Every teacher that I spoke to during that job action, and I spoke to a lot, when I spoke to them about what their concerns were, their major concern, their first concern was always about the kids that they were teaching, about their students, and what impact this action was having on them. And that's still the case. I mean, we have pressure from the province for teachers to catch up the missed time, right? And the concern that I hear from teachers now is how are we going to do that effectively and not overload and overburden the young people and not deny them the kind of extracurricular stuff that we would want to give them that we can't because we're trying to catch up on all this academics. So I think that we have to recognize that that's where teachers are coming from. And we have to rebuild that relationship by, first of all, creating connections between the board. That means that board members need to be a presence in the schools. And they need to be a presence in the schools not just to shake hands and get their picture taken. They need to be a presence in the schools, sitting down and having coffee with teachers and talking to them about what's going on, getting a sense of what their concerns are. Because that's how you really build a relationship, and it is through positive relationships and trust that we're going to rebuild things.
Right.
I think the previous board had a sense of not wanting to take sides, was how it was expressed to me, that they wanted to remain neutral. And I think that's a big mistake. I think that as a board, your responsibility is to the young people in the community and to the community as a whole. And so we should take sides on the side of the community and the children, not on, union versus management.
Right.
So that's it. And you stand up for what's right for the kids and what's right for the communities.
Well, I've spoken to teachers as well, and two of the main issues on their minds that have really not been addressed are, one, class size, class composition,
yes,
and two, special needs.
Yes.
I mean, right now, teachers' expectations and the ministry's education policy in terms of special needs students and how they're handled now,
yes,
it's just not sufficient. It's not adequate. There are too many special needs students, and teachers are expected to deal with that, and it's a real problem. And those two issues have really not been addressed by the deal that was made.
Yeah, and what you've got there is, again, a situation where a deal was made quite some time ago, and the province reneged on that deal. It went to court, and it came down in favor of the teachers regarding class size and composition. And when we talk about special needs and class size and composition are opposite ends of the same stick. They are very connected. Even when you start talking about class size, if the province is willing to talk about it at all, the Ministry of Education's position has been, we set a number, this many students, but you can't do it that way. Because if you have, if you have 30 kids in a classroom and they're all high-functioning young people, that's not a difficult class to manage for most teachers. But if you've got 5 or 6 significantly high needs, special needs students in that, you need teachers' aides, you need special care workers, you need special equipment, all of this stuff. And that changes how many students you can effectively serve within that environment.
Right.
So you can't just put a number on it. As a school board, we need to be lobbying the province on these kinds of issues. And we need to be, and frankly, I think we need to take the side of the teachers on this one because they're right. Because we need to be able to be flexible enough to provide the resources and services that fit the community and fit the students' needs and fit the teachers' needs. Because frankly, if you've got 25 kids in a classroom and 15 of them are ADHD, you're going to lose that teacher.
Right.
They're going to be overworked, overstressed, and they're going to burn out and they're going to leave. And we need to take care of our people.
Right. From your perspective, you'd be a strong advocate for that.
Absolutely.
Great.
I think that, we tend to look at outcomes in terms of graduation rates and marks on departmental examinations. We need to look at outcomes on teacher retention, teacher performance, job satisfaction for teachers as well. certainly we want our kids to have a good learning experience. In order, there's an old saying that you can't be there for someone else unless you're there for yourself first. This is how it is with teachers. We have to be there for our staff so that they have a good working environment and are supported in the work that they do and are honored when they do good. And if we do that, then we're able to provide a better learning experience and a better living experience for our children. And so that's what we need to do. And the board needs to take the lead and step up and make sure that that happens.
Great. Well, I think that's about all the questions I have for you. Is there something we haven't talked about that you'd really like to talk about?
I think I think the only thing that really stands out for me is this issue of the job action and what that did. Because I think it was really unfortunate that the job action became more about sound bites in the media than it did about real negotiation. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to acknowledge that and realize that that did a lot of harm. Right. It's really hurt our school system. It's hurt the morale of our teachers. And we need to come back from that. And we do that by showing them that we've got a board that not just the community can trust, but that the teachers and the staff can trust as well. We need to act in good faith, always.
Great. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Best of luck in the campaign.
Thank you very much.